Thank you for joining us tonight. Kids for Chicago's mission. Our mission is to dramatically improve education for Chicago's children by ensuring their families are respected authorities and decision makers in their children's education. We partner with families to help them gain the resources, information, access, and voice they need to achieve their vision for their children. Our agenda tonight, we've had a welcome. We just finished our pre-survey, and then I'm going to continue with our hopes for today. Following me, we have facilitators from Chicago Public Schools who are going to lead content regarding the Black Student Success Plan. They will follow with a group discussion, and we're going to finish with a post-survey, a raffle, and announcements. So please stay to the end. Our metrics of success and our hopes for today. We hope that our participants will gain a clear understanding of the plan and the progress made since the launch of the Black Student Success Plan. Participants will recognize how their roles, lived experiences, and spheres of influence align with and contribute to the goals, strategies, and call to actions of the Black Student Success Plan. Our speaker tonight is Eugene Robinson Jr. He is the director of the Black Student Success Plan from CPS's Office of Equity. He comes with 20 plus years of experience in education and social work, and we are just very thrilled to have Eugene with us tonight. So I'm going to pass this over to Eugene.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, wait, let me stop sharing because you have to connect audio. So share set. There. And so we should be connected here. All right, does everyone see my screen? Great,
Yes.
awesome. All right, Eugene Robinson Jr. So excited to be here, Director of Black Student Success for Chicago Public Schools. We have some, I'll talk a little bit more about myself, but this is the small but mighty team here. Myself, you have Dama, who is the project manager of Black Student Success. She is with us. And then we also have one of our other colleagues in the Office of Equity, Josh Johnson, who is a professional learning specialist within our team. And so we're super excited to present about the Black Student Success Plan and share some updates. We love having conversations with communities, with parents, with families, because we cannot do this work in a vacuum. Just a little bit about myself. I am a product of Chicago Public Schools. I went to Goodlow, which is now Earl in the Inglewood community. I graduated from Lindblom High School, go swoop swoop. I am a kid of the South Side, a kid of Inglewood, very proud to represent Inglewood. I like to share that my grandmother was actually one of the first Black families to move on 62nd and Winchester in the 60s. And so I bring that into space. Originally after high school, I decided to go down a journey of going to culinary school, went to culinary school, was a chef, and later on pursued a master's in social work at the University of Chicago. So I've had a lot of different experiences over my 20 plus years experience, but I always ground myself in that experience of being an alum and being a product of the South Side. So happy to be in community. We talked about our objectives. So just really want participants to gain a clear understanding of the plan and progress, and then understanding how your role, your lived experiences is important, and really grounding us in the work that we are here to do within the Black Student Success Plan. I always like to start off with the video to bring student voice into space. And so I'll start us off with the video.
I would like
Is the
Black
sound
students to
okay?
experience talking to teachers more and peers, because I noticed, like, when I've been at Dyer High School, some students have been quiet, and like I sometimes you can tell when somebody's going through something, just the way they walk, how they talk, and things of that nature. So I feel like talking to peers, students more will really help, Black community out.
The CPS equity framework is the foundation for the equity work in Chicago Public Schools, and it's intentionally integrated in our 5 year strategic plan, which has a particular strategic priority for Black Student Success Plan. And in that priority, we talk about the needs of Black students, and it's anchored on targeted universalism, which is the anchor principle for our Chicago Public Schools CPS equity framework.
Why the focus on Black students and why now? We know that Chicago Public Schools has made gains in the success of Black students. But when we look more deeply at our current and historic data, we continue to see that Black students are furthest from success and from opportunities. And so if we ground ourselves in our equity framework, particularly around targeted universalism, it calls us to take a targeted racial equity approach in ensuring that we support Black students so that they could achieve the same success as their peers. What do you think that all Black students should experience from pre-K all the way through 12th grade?
So when students, parents, and community members had the specific call out to the district, we were intentional about using our inclusive partnerships to create a Black Student Success working group where we worked on creating the strategies and the recommendations that are in the plan today.
I want all Black students to experience comfort and inclusion, for sure. Okay, we're all Black, but we all have way different personalities, way different backgrounds, all of that. So inclusion, for sure. It's one thing to teach us, but it's another thing to actually root for us and want us to succeed in life. I feel like the Black Student Success Plan will be a success if we actually stick with it, and go through with it.
Our voices being heard from adult standard is possibly like one of the biggest things in the world, because personally as a teenager, I don't really like the kind of kid status they try to put. Like, nobody in general likes being called a kid. It's just more of like a insult nowadays. But I just don't like it whenever I'm put at like a kid status, as if there's something I can't do or something that I'm limited to do because I'm still viewed as a kid.
Black students to experience great people, great education, so that they could be role models to other kids when they grow up.
Mental health is a key part, and everything through elementary school to college. So that, I feel like if they have somebody to vent to or talk to, it can help them in the long run. And I think that can help them be successful and make partnerships with different people in different communities.
I want all Black students to have a chance to form healthy relationships that could possibly help them have a successful future. And I want all Black students to feel like they can be who they are in their own skin.
Sometimes even the teacher be disingenuous, like they come on too strong, or if you do have like younger teachers and they like try to relate to you, they want to be your friend. But at the same time, y'all are not friends. It's a power imbalance always. It's always gonna be that. I just want somebody who has genuine empathy.
In 5 years, where I hope to see us as a school district related to Black Student Success Plan, improved access to opportunities for Black students. I hope to see improved outcomes when we think about academic outcomes, post-secondary outcomes, when we think about connectedness and well-being, when we see Black students furthest from the opportunity. I hope to see that we are continuously closing the opportunity gap and that we are integrating the powerful practices, the change in systems that we hope to see within the Black Student Success Plan, that we are integrating that throughout the fabric of the district for a more sustainable and more transformative system for the success of Black students. All right, I am back. And so Hopefully you enjoyed that video. And so we'll just go through the chat as our community discussion. Um, Discuss your thoughts on the video or share about a time you felt seen or heard. So for the purpose of the chat, or if you wanted to come off mute, you're more than welcome to come off mute. If you had any thoughts or feelings about the video, you can drop it in the chat. Or if there's a particular time where you share about a time you felt seen or heard, going back to whether elementary or high school, who is that one adult, that one teacher that made you feel seen and heard. And so you can drop their name in the chat or you can come off mute. And we'll give a few minutes for folks to do so. But I like to bring it in space. I think it's really important for us to think about a time when we were the age of our children, our students.
Can I speak? Is it okay? Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love the way that the children articulate themselves. In the time where I grew up, I went to school, in high school in the 80s. Grew up like early 70s. Children are seen, not heard. So I just want to say we definitely evolving, and that's just good. Yeah, yeah. And my cat's being vocal too. Okay.
Everybody has a voice. Thank you. Any others? I see folks adding it to the chat. I see Miss Oliver at CVS, Miss Dorsey. Thank you for bringing them into space, Miss Gurley. Miss Newton, gym teacher, division teacher. Thank you. We'll give about 60 more seconds. Thank you. Yes. I didn't get a chance to see the name of the um, who spoke earlier. So sorry, because it doesn't when you're doing Zoom. But thank you for bringing that to space. I think that we all, when we think about our own lived experiences and how we experience school, you're absolutely right. I talk about that often growing up in, the 80s and the 90s. You were seen, not heard. You didn't have a voice. You didn't have an opinion. You go to school and get the lesson. So I think um, we are evolving. You're absolutely right. Even as school districts or just education landscape, this idea of student voice is really a new phenomenon in the last past 8 to 10 years. And I think that we are continuously doing the work as adults to shift our mindsets, our belief, particularly around student voice and how do we incorporate that more into our work. So thank you for sharing that. All right, we will continue to move on. Thank you, but feel free to add it into the chat. Dama's going to drop in an actual link to the Black Student Success Plan, but here is a QR code to the plan. So if you wanted to pull it up on your phone as we move along, feel free to do so. We'll make sure that that link is dropped in the chat for you to sort of pull down a copy of the Black Student Success Plan. So I'll leave it up here for a few seconds if you wanted to grab your phone and just have it next to you. And then when we talk about the Black Student Success Plan, I want to cover a couple of things. So you saw in the video the focus groups and the discussions that were happening all across the community. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But when we think about the Black Student Success Plan, the Black Student Success Plan is one of many priorities within the CPS 5-year strategic plan, Success 2029, Together We Rise. The Black Student Success Plan It's also grounded in the CPS equity framework. Um, and when we think about what equity, how do we define equity within our equity framework? And so if someone wanted to come off mute and read that middle definition for us, that would be great.
CPS defines equity as championing the individual cultures, identities, talents, abilities, languages, and interests of each student by ensuring they receive the necessary opportunities and resources to meet their unique needs and aspirations.
Thank you so much. Was that Ashley? Thank you, Ashley. And when we also think about our equity framework and when we think about our lens, when we think about liberatory thinking, what is the work that we are doing as adults of the system to hold a mirror up to ourselves, to our practices, to challenge our own beliefs and thoughts? What is that work we are doing as a system around pushing our thoughts and our beliefs around educational landscape and the experiences that we want young people to have. When we think about inclusive partnerships and when we ground ourselves in our three I's that we often talk about, those who are most impacted, those who have institutional knowledge, and those who are implementers. How are we not doing this work in a vacuum and making sure that we are partnering with those who have the lived experiences and can share and give us the insight and the feedback related to the work that we're doing? How are we partnering, whether it be with community-based organizations, with institutions, with parents? How are we making sure that our students, our parents, our community members have a seat at the table as we do this work? When we think about resource equity, when we think about the resources, ensuring that we are providing the equitable access to resources and to schools the resources that is needed to ensure that our schools are able to provide high quality education and live out the mission and vision of Chicago Public Schools. When we think about people, time, and money, how are we making sure, even through our own systems and practices as a school district, and something we talk about under Resource Equity Opportunity Index, how are we making sure that we are taking an equitable approach to the resources that is provided to schools, students to have access, the communities to have access, and that includes people, time, and money. When we think about fair systems and policies, when we think about what are those policies and how are they impacting our students, our schools, and the work and our practices. One thing that happens throughout the entire district that you may or may not know this, but all of the sort of district policies have to flow through. We look through each of those policies through our equity lens, and it flows through our equity office of equity as well as through our office of family and community engagement. And so making sure that we take an approach. And then that white part that you see is targeted universalism, and I'll talk a little bit about targeted universalism. And so targeted universalism, we often talk about the Black Student Success Plan is the district's targeted universalism approach to supporting Black students. So TU is an approach to equity work that recognizes groups of people have differing needs or require specific supports to reach the same goal. So the North Star is the North Star for all students across the district. This TU is not about taking from one group to elevate another group. It's not shifting resources from one group of students to another group of students. It is the entire system recognizing, and since we're talking about Black student success, recognizing that Black students require a different set of supports or resources that we need to contextualize and understand in the dynamics that students need in order to be successful. It is not to take away from one group to elevate another group. So TU work is collaborative, like things like this particular presentation, and collaborating across the system, collaborating across the entire city. It's responsive, it's sensitive, it's structural. How are we doing the work as an institution to disrupt, to dismantle the practices, the beliefs, the systems that are impacting Black students very differently than other groups of students? So that is TU. So oftentimes like to dispel the myth that TU is about taking from others or equity work is about taking from others to elevate another group. we ground ourselves in the historical context. When we think about how did we get here and our why, we have to be mindful about Black Chicago, right? We have to be mindful about the experience, particularly that our Black students and our families and our community has experienced, not only across the nation, but when we think about Chicago as well. We go all the way back to thinking about the Great Migration. We have to acknowledge why is this city so segregated, right? We have to look at the housing practices that existed before us, redlining. I often talk about when I first saw my grandmother's mortgage statement. She was one of the first Black families to move in Inglewood on 62nd and Winchester, right? We also have to talk about discriminatory housing practices, right? We know that there are certain communities and neighborhoods that Black people were only allowed to live in Chicago. We also have to ground ourselves in the Willis wagons in the 1963 Freedom Day boycott, right? We also have to understand the Black Belt. So when we think about that historical context, we have to begin to ask ourselves what has happened historically and how has Black students and families and communities been impacted by certain systems, by certain institutions. And so I will leave this on the screen for a second just to allow folks to sit with this. And we have at the end of this is ongoing. So there is more that we can add to this, but we talk about the work that we are doing consistently as a school district. And so you're probably wondering what is guiding us to do this work? And so one of the things we're going to talk about that most folks may not know is this work is codified by state law. So the same state law that created the newly elected school board requires this board to establish what's called a Black Student Achievement Committee. It has actually been created, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as an official standing committee of the board with the purpose of providing students with the maximum opportunity for success in areas where research shows that there has been chronic underperformance of African American students during the elementary and secondary education experience. So that board committee will serve as the accountability arm for the district's implementation of the Black Student Success Plan. So that committee shall be chaired by members of the board and should be composed of individuals appointed by the president of the board to help the board shape educational policy. So our current co-chairs of that committee is Board Member Brown and Board Member Blaze of the official Board of Education. That committee membership should be diverse in terms of skill and geography. So how do we ensure that we have representation all across the city, all with various backgrounds of individuals. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that actual committee, which the application did open and it did launch for people to apply to be a part of that. But that committee will be made up of diverse individuals, including students, including parents such as yourself, local school members, PAC members, community-based organizations, potentially elected officials, union partners. So it'd be very diverse to ensure that we're incorporating the voices of the entire landscape of Chicago. And so I'll pause here just to see what thus far what I've shared with you, what's coming up for you, and I'll give you a second to put it in the chat. And feel free to come off mute if you want to come off mute. What's coming up for anyone thus far?
I can go again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I can go again. So what's coming up for me is I want to say parents not being, I'm going to say across the board, not just one particular school, but across the board, parents weren't being invited into the school. So I feel like that plays a role with student success. Um, if we're going to be a village, let's be a village. Um, that's just one entity. Attendance, parents, I think attendance impacts our student success too. Um, what else can I say? Because I got lost words.
That's okay.
Yeah, but definitely attendance and definitely parents not being invited because I feel like if parents are the foundation for when it comes down to students, parents are the foundation. And when you make parents feel welcome, I know there's a couple of knuckleheads here and there, but everybody's not like that. So we have to open the doors and be selective and supportive. And then I feel like scores will be better. And then another thing that the last thing that stuck out to me is why can't we all have great supports in our neighborhood schools? Why do we all have to have selective enrollment schools? Why can't all schools, if we're talking about equity, why can't all schools be, supportive in different things, to help students to thrive? So that's what resonates with me.
We also have a comment in the chat from Minnie Joy, something that stood out for her. Um, our parents actually wanting to be active, she said.
Thank you. And I think Yolanda had her hand.
Hi, good evening. What stands out for me is transition. I speak highly of that because I have a diverse daughter who has Down syndrome, and she's 18, and she just graduated from Michelle Clark. There are only 3 transitional schools, and I live in the Austin community, and she goes to Northside Learning Center, which is in the Albany Park, which is a couple communities away from me. Like she has to be ready at 6:15 so that she can get to school at 7:45, and I don't see her again till 4 o'clock. And I feel as though the South Side Transitional School and whatever the one is, kind of like East Loop or something like South Loop. I mean, I just feel like the diverse kids get short ends of the stick. And I heard you say something about this 5-year plan is supposedly like made up of um, people who have, I guess, training or experience in different categories. But I didn't hear any. I don't know. Are they experienced in diversity SPED? You know, since the SPED teachers have to get training and all of that, and I think that it should be an ongoing thing because the the children with disabilities, the rules change every day. So it's something different every day.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And so hold on to that. And that is the reason why we're here today, right? So excited, as I said before. I always get excited when I have the opportunity, we have the opportunity to present about the plan because we don't want to assume that everybody knows the plan, what's in the plan, why we're doing the plan, and how the plan is going to sort of impact their lives. And so that is the hope here today and ongoing. So it won't end tonight, right? So we will talk about other ways that you can stay involved and engaged. Thank you. So just talk a little bit about the history of the plan. And you saw from the video that the Black Student Success Plan is grounded in your voices, the voices of parents and students and community members. And so hopefully you were able to see that in the video. And so it started with the development of what's called the Black Student Success Working Group, which played a critical role in the developing of the insights and the feedback from various voices, summarized collective comments. And we also have access, and Dama can drop the chat, the link to the Black Student Success website where you can actually see the artifacts. One of the things that we are being intentional about is being transparent about the development of the plan, implementation of the plan, the progress, and that will all continue on our website so that you can see the journey and the story. And so this was an inclusive approach that ensured that we took into account the unique perspectives of students, adults, parents, guardians, teachers, and school leaders towards goals. So we hosted focus groups, roundtable discussions, and we're continuing to do that as we implement the plan. We are celebrating next month would be 1 year since the launch of the Black Student Success Plan. So you see from there 8 community roundtables, focus groups, and there were over 60 members as a part of the sort of Black Student Success Working Group. So this plan is a culmination of those voices, the needs, the perspective, the lived experiences of the community, and it's grounded in what the community, the Black community, has asked the districts for. As long as I've been around, the Black community has asked for this level of approach to supporting Black students. And so now I'm going to talk about our continued approach to continuing to engage our community members and our parents. So we moved from the working group, and what we've established is called the Black Student Success Champion and Stakeholder Alliance. So this is an opportunity for community members, parents, just any of our stakeholders, whether you're philanthropic, higher ed institution, policymakers, to join us as we do this work, and also to help hold us accountable. I think it's really important that we get held accountable related to this work. We also saw that this is also a state mandate and a part of the state statute that created the elected school board for us to be intentional and take this racial equity approach. And so we've established what's called the Black Student Success Champion and Stakeholder Alliance. It allows for folks to come together quarterly to talk about, to see the progress that we're making, engage in discussions and give feedback and allow for your voice to be a part of that. And then we're hosting annual community roundtables, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And then our annual convening, which is to be determined. And so if you're really interested in staying a part of this journey, a part of this process, this is one way that you can stay involved in this work to continue to allow for your lived experience, for your voice to be a part of that. And so the Black Student Success Champion and Stakeholder meets quarterly. So we had our first meeting October 28th. Our next meeting is January 22nd, and then March 31st and June 18th. We are hosting community roundtables March 10th, March 11th, March 12th, and March 16th, which is virtual. And I'll share more about that once it's announced. We'll make sure we get it over to the Kids First team to get all of this information out to you related to the roundtables. I'm happy to share that we will have a community roundtable on the West Side. We're working with one of our community partners on the West Side. We will have a South Side roundtable at Phillips High School, and then a far South Side community roundtable in person, and then virtual will be the sort of 4 sites. And so in the Black Student Success Plan is our call to action. And so there are 6 parts of our call to action that is our way of activating the community, like and members of that community like yourself. So partnering with around ensuring how do we foster culturally responsive learning. So that is a goal that I'll talk a lot about in the Black Student Success Plan. Increase equitable access and opportunities for Black students. How do we help to strengthen and sustain Black educators and leaders, which is an actual goal in our plan. When we think about, and an article actually just came out talking about the district efforts related to Black male teachers. So when we think about who is furthest from being seen in a Black educator and the educator pipeline, we've recognized that Black male educators are the least represented group among our education pipeline. And so the national average of Black male teachers sits between 1.5 and 2% annually And we know that the district sits above that, and we're working to put out a Black male educator report. We also want to activate the community around engage, empower Black students, families, and community. I think you saw that from the video, our students elevating that the Black community is not a monolith, right? The needs of Roseland are going to be different than Inglewood, and the needs of Inglewood are going to be different than Bronzeville. And so, how do we take that context, that cultural context, and that understanding into practice and begin to differentiate our support and our engagement and how we partner? But we can't do that without your voice, without your collaboration, without your partnership. How do we begin to address systemic and structural inequities, right? And so I love that you shared your experience of being a parent and having to navigate our systems, particularly when it comes to providing for our students with disabilities, right? And so, how do we understand and address those systemic and structural inequities and those barriers? And then, lastly, student agency, student voice, and empowerment. I'll talk a little bit about how we are approaching that work to helping the district establish Black student unions. So this is our call to action, and it's aligned to the Black Student Success Plan. So we're hoping that our community members, such as yourself, parents and students, will see themselves in this call to action and think about where you want to step in and support us and collaborate with us in this sort of area of work. And so there are key elements in the Black Student Success Plan. One element of the plan is around identity, culture, and voice. How do we elevate our students' identity and understand the intersectionality of identity, culture, and voice? How do we ensure we know from that video that Black students no longer want education done to them? They want to see when it comes to what school feels like, looks like, what they experience in and outside of the classroom. And research has shown us that when we double down on that, that helps improve not only student engagement, but the overall learning experience for our students. An inclusive and culturally responsive curriculum instruction, right? This work could live in multiple different ways. How we double down on expanding our students' access to Black history not being just a unit, but how do we make sure that we double down on actual courses and curriculum that is much more inclusive and culturally responsive, where students can see themselves in a curriculum? We know that that work is happening. And for example, early childhood is doing that work when we think about literature and text for our pre-K students, and working with those teachers to ensure that when students are engaging in literacy and learning, that they can access a book or access readings that will have them in mind and will be representation of their culture and their identity. So it's a both and. Whole school, whole child supports. How are we recognizing that that is a whole, that a student is much more than a number? And how do we make sure that we are supporting students more holistically and taking in cultural context? I have a social work background. I think it is equally important for us to not only make sure that we have clinicians that are culturally responsive and attuned to our needs, but we also be making sure as a school district that students get to interact with clinicians and individuals that look like them. And so that's the reason why we have a goal around sort of the Black educator, the Black teacher pipeline. Culturally responsive family and community engagement and empowerment, understanding the Black community is not a monolith, right? And holding true to that and being much more culturally responsive to the needs of our families in our communities, and not taking sort of cookie cutter approaches to that work. Learning development and liberatory thinking. This is a lot of work that you see in the equity office around professional learning. How are we addressing our own biases, beliefs, and also addressing anti-Blackness? Anti-Blackness can show up in many different ways and spaces and places. And so how are we as adults doing the mirror work, looking at our own practices and beliefs to students? You can have the opportunities, but the adults don't believe that students should have access to that, or don't believe that that is the next level where young people would be, then those resources still get underutilized and students still don't access them. System policies and practices. How are we looking at what we implemented? How did that impact students' identity and their connectedness and practices impacting certain groups of students. We still know we are disproportionate at high peers. So what policies that are driving those things? The recruitment, retention, and support of Black educators and leaders. I touched a little bit about the work that we are doing, and I will share the article that was just recently published through WTT Chicago that really calls out why that goal in the plan is really important. And so we think about some of the goals in the plan, the key elements of the plan. Double the number of Black male educators, high and improve teacher retention from 91 to 93%. Focusing on reducing disciplinary actions with students, understanding that the students that are most impacted by this are oftentimes Black students are suspended at disproportionately higher rates. We also see that our students with disabilities with IEPs not only are the furthest from access and opportunity to success, but you also see that they are one of the highest groups to also be suspended. How do we improve a strong sense of belonging among Black students so they feel valued and included in their school communities? How do we ensure that we accelerate growth and attainment for Black students and close opportunity gaps from early learning? I talked about the work that preschool is doing all across core academic areas. How are we ensuring that our Black students are getting access to advanced level coursework, kind of studies, right? Like dual credit opportunities and early college and career opportunities. How are we supporting students' post-secondary pathway and success? Our Office of School Counseling and Post-Secondary Advisement is working on a goal to increase sort of Black male college enrollment as well as scholarship attainment, because when they looked at their data, they saw that Black male students' scholarship attainment was the lowest of any of those groups. And how do we increase the percentage of classrooms utilizing culture responsive practices and teaching about Black history and culture, not just a unit, but how is that threaded throughout our curriculum and our approach to learning? These are some key goals that are outlined in the Black Student Success Plan. Now, where do you see yourself? And so I'll pause and give folks about a minute if they want to come off mute. I just shared a lot, or drop in the chat. Where do you see yourself related to this work?
Hello. My name is Minnie Joy Wilker. I'm actually a member of K1C's PAB, and I started a PLT on the South Side, which my goal was to essentially make different resources that I was aware of, um, and the committee was aware of, more accessible to students within not only CPS, but just students across the board and their families. So this is really important to me. So I would love to be a part of the stakeholders committee if possible. And if not, maybe we can hold more of these so that more parents are aware that this is even an initiative. A lot of people don't even know that this is happening and don't even realize how impactful this will be for their kids and the future kids to come. So I would actually like to have a one-off with you after this as well.
Absolutely, no problem.
Okay,
Yeah, no
thank you.
problem. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And continue to share in the chat. And I'm hoping that you see yourself and see that parents have a critical role. I I would not I would not be sitting in this seat in this role if it wasn't for my grandmother's sixth grade education, being one of the first Black families to move on 62nd and Winchester. If it wasn't for my parents, from my mother. So I know the role that parents play, community members play in the success of every student. And so I am an example and a product of um, parental advocacy and my mother holding strong and making sure that I got the opportunities that I needed to be successful.
I have a question. I put it in the chat. I asked the question, will they hire more clinicians to help support this vision?
Yeah, that is a great connection question. And so each office or department, I can't say that that is actually happening. I know that it's been a long time district strategy related to ensuring that we have the proper amounts of clinicians, from psychologists to social workers, to school counselors. And so it is a goal within talent related to that overall goal. And the diverse pipeline is all baked into that particular strategy. So what we did was connect the plan to those goals to ensure, particularly around the Black educator, and particularly Black educator retention and Black male educator.
Can I ask another question? Oh, you
So if you,
finished. Okay, I'm
yeah,
sorry. I don't want to ask it. Okay.
okay, I
I
promise.
was
Q
gonna,
and A. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask,
Mhm.
since you guys are doing that, do you think you guys can reach out to the colleges for those college students that's currently going through internships? Maybe they could support, and then you guys could, save some money, and they can get credit from you. You know what I mean? So they'll get credit, receive credit, or a recommendation by them supporting the vision, and then you guys will be saving money on the front and back end. So
You,
just a thought. Just a thought.
love it, love it, love it, love it. Absolutely. And so, yes, we can definitely talk more about that. But we do have an initiative, and I can share that at the end of this call with the follow up email. We have something called Teach Chicago Tomorrow, which is a part of our strategy where we connect with high school students who are interested in um, being an educator. And Teach Chicago Tomorrow connects with them while they're in high school all the way through college, with the idea that they go from Teach Chicago Tomorrow to being a teacher in the district. And so more efforts like that need to happen. So absolutely. I mentioned about the Chicago Board of Education. So hopefully you heard about this exciting application that launched in November. The application did close on December 22nd. Very excited about the number of applications we received. And so we are being very intentional about ensuring that that student achievement committee that's a part of the board has that diverse voice and representation across the community. A couple other updates I wanted to share is that we do have a media and comms strategy within the Black Student Success. So I will share that the district does have an open investigation by the U.S. Department of Education. So we don't comment that pending investigation, but probably very aware that we do have an open investigation by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights related to the Black Student Success Plan. So we did respond to that. We continue to respond if any inquiry comes, and our law department and the Board of Education is on top of that. In our media plan, we always anchor this work in amplifying community voices like yourself on why this plan is really important. We're always engaging our partners to participate in media interviews. And we also launched a newsletter this fall to highlight what is happening related to the plan, amplifying those voices of the community, because we need this work to live beyond Chicago public schools, right, to ensure that it is successful. And so the newsletter, and I'll share a QR code, is to really provide key updates and announcements. There's some amazing work that is happening across our schools and across our communities related to that. Some students are doing some amazing work. Our partners are doing some amazing work. And so if you're interested in opting into the newsletter, here's the QR code. And then put in your information, and then we'll make sure that you receive our newsletter and so that you can sign that. But I'll allow the QR code to stay on the screen for a few more minutes, a few seconds, I'm sorry. We will also put the links in the chat. So here's a few updates so you know. We are approaching a year out since launching the plan. We launched the plan in February of 2025. So what's been happening related to the Black Student Success Plan? So some things that we are working on: establishing a student-based Black Student Success working group. So how do we continue to engage students in sort of like And thank you, I believe it was Ms. Thomas who mentioned about this idea of students being a part of this and young people. So our goal is to create a Black Student Success Working Group. It's sort of like a leadership development, summer internships where they have an opportunity to engage in this work and work across the many different offices, providing insights and feedback and just being a part of the development and implementation of the plan. And we're hoping that we can do this and partner with the Mayor's Office of One Summer Chicago, where the students actually get paid to do their work, because I think they should be compensated for their talent and their time and their treasures. We're looking to partner with community-based organizations to be able to do this work. So we are in conversation with organization. Dama, who is on the call, has been leading a charge around Black student unions. So we're doing the landscape analysis. You probably heard this idea of Black student unions that live in higher ed spaces. But one of the recommendations that came out of the working group is how do we create these sort of culturally and racially affinity spaces in our schools. And so the recommendation is establish Black student unions, a guide, a framework, and create the framework for the district on how to implement Black student unions. So we've been having conducting focus groups with high school students. We're going to conduct focus groups with elementary school students and staff who have Black student unions, who don't have Black student unions. And we're also, as I said before, doing a landscape analysis of what schools have them already, why did you develop them, and what can we learn from them? And so more to come related to that. And then we're doing some internal work. So I talked about that liberatory thinking and learning and development and collaboration. So as key offices outlined in the plan, we're coming together. We actually just had a meeting together with all of these offices around Black student unions. What are we doing as a district specifically around ensuring that Black students are successful, grounding ourselves in an equity framework? Talked about targeting universalism, how we being much more targeted around supporting Black students. And so more to come related to that. Our community roundtables will highlight some of the work that we're doing internally across all of these offices related to Black student unions. So I'm actually been presenting to many of our school leaders related to Black student unions. So for some of our parents here, part of the local school council, you probably already know that schools are in the process of writing their new CIWPs. So I've been collaborating with different chiefs across networks to get in front of principals to present the Black Student Success Plan and our equity framework, and how do we make connections and get schools to set goals related to Black student unions, rather related to the Black Student Success Plan. So we remind schools that whether you are 1% Black to 100% Black, the Black Student Success Plan is applicable to you. And how do we make sure that our schools are setting goals and identifying, is it Black boys with IEPs that furthers for opportunity and success at their school? Is it Black girls? Is it certain students with GPA? Is it students who travel the furthest? Because we still see that Black students do travel the furthest related to accessing elementary and high school. And so we continue engagement through our Black Student Success Champion and Stakeholder, our community roundtables that are taking place. I've been making my rounds to our various CACs across the city, presenting to different stakeholders group, faith leaders. We know that the Black church is important in the Black community. So how am I building that relationship and partnership and presenting to our faith-based leaders related to Black Student Success Plan? And then if there are other circles similar to like the one that I am in now, we do these upon request. And just quickly, we are continuing to apply for different grant fundings to be able to support this work. And then we also are looking to establish sort of our research practice partnership, and then do a test for change and incubating a group of schools who want to double down on the work of Black student success. So I mentioned about our Black Student Success Champion and Stakeholder Alliance. If you are interested in being a part of that, that alliance group and that stakeholder group, here is the QR code. Feel free to scan it. I'll leave it up here for a few seconds. And we will also drop the link in the chat. But then once I do a follow-up email, you'll be able to have access to that link. So no worries. About 10 more seconds. All right. So I always like to share data. So in the Black Student Success Plan, we talk about the state of Black student enrollment in which of our schools, where do we see um, large concentrations of Black students enrolled in certain schools across the city. We shared earlier how segregated the city is. And when we look at enrollment, where do we see large concentration of Black students that are enrolled? So I'm going to open it up. If someone could probably take a guess of the elementary school that has the largest concentration of Black students enrolled in one building. And the school is on the south side. It is between 47th and 55th. That is the
Beasley.
clue. Oh, all right. Well, Beasley, it is. Uh,
I'm gonna say
so,
that. I'm gonna say that.
My
so
son is a student there, honey. I
all
see
right.
it.
You see it. All right.
Wow.
So when we look at the elementary schools that have the largest concentration of Black students enrolled in one building, Beasley is the top school. This is as of the 20th day this school year, here are the 15 schools. And I will leave it on the screen. I'm going to give some other context after the next slide. Someone take a guess to help me identify the top two high schools that have the most Black students concentrated in one building. One of them is in the same area as Beasley, and another one is on the far south side.
Wood.
Kenwood is number one,
Morgan Park.
and Morgan Park is number two. So these are the top 15 schools where we see the largest concentration of Black students enrolled in one building.
My grandson, he graduated from Morgan Park. Grade
So,
school.
yeah.
Yeah.
So to help you give some other context to this data, because I think it's important when we talk about Black student success, when we talk about just Black students in the district, we have to understand their position in the district. So although the district is 34% Black when it comes to students, charter schools are more disproportionately Black than the district as a whole. And so I'll say that again. Chicago Public Schools is at 34% Black. Charter schools are over 50% Black when we think about there's disproportionately represented Black students are disproportionately represented in charter schools than in district schools. Limblund has the largest concentration of Black students in one building among selective enrollment schools. So just to give you that context. And so now I will stop sharing, and we have a few minutes